Hello and welcome to my talk about good developers and how to become a great one. Apologize up front. That's my first talk in front of such a big audience, so and I'm a little bit nervous, so please be patient with me. What will I talk about? I will talk about like what is a good developer and how to become great. So what is like this secret sauce? What is like the thing you need to have to become a great one? But before we start, I need to provide you with a disclaimer. So all the opinions, concepts I will share in the next slides are on my own subjective observations and experiences. So like your objections, your concepts, your ideas about this will be different. But to understand like what I will present now, like this is important. So also to help you a bit better understanding like where my concepts and theories came from, I need to tell you a bit more about myself. So, once upon a time, there was a small village in the middle of Germany, and there was a child born named Christian. Now we skip the not so important parts, and it ends up him becoming like a PHP developer in a small startup called Spreadshirt. So this is like a story, and like this describes that my first job was a startup, and I never left this field. So this is also important information you need to know about me. I always work and try to work in startups. A little bit more about myself. I started my career as a developer at Spreadshirt, my first job, and it was like a company which like was specialized on customizing T-shirts. They have like T-shirt designs, like contests all the time running. So there was a time I fell in love with T-shirts. So I'm probably the one in this room who has the most T-shirts at home. Like I just counted last time, it was like over 200. After this, I like did some freelancing. I like a lot of e-commerce freelancing, like helping people up, setting up shops. Like I also did like kind of architectural jobs in terms of when like the biggest one was 3 years working for a police department in Lower Saxony. After this, I was really like want to get back in startups, so I got to Berlin for my first job as CTO. Though this was at Tirendo, which was an e-commerce startup about selling tires. After this, like it ends up with a very bad acquisition, so I can share like a story about this one afterwards. I ended up in FinLeap, which was like a fintech incubator, and I'm working on like building banks and like investment portfolio management software. And I figured out like in this time that fintech is not my field. I really like e-commerce, marketplaces, and like actually users using your application. That's why I moved to Ask Charlie, and we like bootstrapped like a company from ground up. It was a marketplace about local services. And then like I ended up in I think it was like 2016 when I joined Oberlo, which was like a small startup here in Lithuania at this time. And yeah, later 2017 we joined Shopify, and now we are working on building like the next generation of like product sourcing. I just tell you this because it shows a bit like the different stacks I'm working in. It shows primarily that I'm working mostly in startups. So everything I've learned about like what is a good developer, what is a great developer, in my opinion, comes from this perspective. If you work in a corporate environment, in a bigger company, in the government, for example, like your opinion will probably different. What I can say, or why do I have like some kind of, why can I share you something? I also talked with a lot of developers in my career or in my job as CTO. Very important role there is like to talk with a lot of people to try to find the right one for your team, which fits. And like with this, I probably talked to over 700 developers in my professional career as CTO. And like in this case, only as part of the interview process. So I'm like normally the first one would talk with someone. I may be later in the stage of the interview process to talk with someone, but I always try to figure out if a person like has the potential to be a good developer, and maybe I can see like the potential of him becoming a great one. So no one is like great from the start. It's always like a process. So that's background of me. How do I came to this? What I want to share with you. In the next slides, and we start with defining what is a good developer. Before we actually do this, I want to ask, like in this round, like who actually is a developer here in this room? Just please raise your arm. Wow, cool. So nearly everyone, probably like around like 80%, and the others like probably want to become a developer soon, right? cool. So sadly, I hope that most of the stuff I will present in the next slides will be known to you. So it's not like I will share something which should be new for you. So just like put a different picture on it. For me, what makes a good developer is like he writes good software. So that's like the easiest angle to talk about this, to figure out like if someone is a good one, like you can look at the code or the software or like the application he builds. And I will like take this angle in the next slides to enlighten this a bit more. Just a disclaimer again, like as you saw in the stack from the companies I worked in, like they were all startups, they were all like web-hosted applications. They had like a very similar stack, so both are script-based languages, like classic MySQL databases. So from this stack I'm talking about. So what is good software? It's like a microservice and event sourcing based agile serverless MVP with predictive AI trained by machine learning written in Clojure, right? That's good software. Maybe not. I just like want to have like one slide with all the modern buzzwords in one. So actually this is not good software. Maybe it can be become good software after some time, but it's definitely not in my understanding. In my understanding, good software is maintainable. That's like the core of good software. And like I'm not only talking about like these bugs, I'm really talking about like what is like from the definition of maintainability, and like a good software which is like live for a longer time needs to be maintainable. And we start with the definition of this. So what is actually the definition of maintainability? And I just picked the definition from Wikipedia, which is always nice to go to Wikipedia first when you have no idea how to start this. And like software maintenance in software engineering is the modification of a software product after delivery to correct faults, to improve performance, or other attributes. So that's maintainability from Wikipedia. I also found like some other studies and like something which describes like my view to maintainability a bit better was also like quite old. It's from the 1970s. It's a very wide known study, and like they describe like maintainability in the following with the following aspects. It's adaptive. That is, I mean, like maintaining or maintainability means in this way that you modify your platform, your software, and to keep it in cope with changes in your software environment. So we all know this, like dependency changed, like new version is out. I need to upgrade to the next like framework version. I need to do this to keep my software like on a good shape. Then perfectiveness, or perfective, that's the implementing of new functionality demanded from the users. So like users ask, hey, I need a new feature, business come, I need a new feature. Like customer support tells you like we have an issue here and like you need to change this, you need to adopt existing functionality to behave accordingly what your users want. Then we have corrective. This is actually the bug fixing, so like a bug pops up, you go there, fix it, that's the corrective part. And then you have preventive, which is a little bit harder to describe, but it's actually building the software, or like changing the software in a way that you see errors quickly, that like your errors are not like created so more easily, so making your software harder. And what it points out, that 75% like of all maintenance actions, which like the companies did, which participate in the survey, were around like the adaptive and perfective part. So actually making changes due to the environment or due to user changes, user behavior, user demand. 21 were actually about fixing code, so fixing bugs, solving things, and like the rest 4% go to make your platform harder. So I found a much better, for me, like more, or maybe also for you, more grabbable definition. What is maintainability, and like why we need to have it. Because like the only constant thing which you have in your software development life is change. So everything else is, like, can be blurred out, but like this will be stand out. If you look at like what you did in your last year, you probably change your platform a lot. So maybe I'm just asking, like, who's like always writing new stuff? Who's always adding new things to your software and never, or who was refactoring in the last year like some part of the platform? We'll always see change. And what the major thing you can do is like make your future self, make it easier for your future self to change the software. So this is maintainability for me. How you can do this? What are the tools like a good developer should have in order to make maintainable software? What can he do? And like very obvious, like have clean code. So write clean code, write code in a way that it's easy to read, because that's also like a nice fact. You read like 10 times more code than you write it. So actually, like in a day-to-day basis, your lines of code which you actually type into your IDE or wherever actually is really limited, but like you will have already read a lot of more code to make this happen. So easy and readable and understandable code helps a lot on this for this like times when you read it. Make it easy for like other people, like when they do a pull request to read your code, that they understand like what you write there. Like ideally also write like a small description in the pull request, and like it makes like to give them some more context, but the code should also provide like the information like what they need to see if this works or not. Try to make it simple, so might try to like not complex like decision trees. Like try to make it like very, very simple, like try to like write things more in a modular way. And in the end, like have less really low what the fuck rate, which is like something happened a lot. Just if you don't know like what is clean code, like these 2 books, like buy them, read them, they will make your life immediately better, and like not only your life, mainly the life of the people around you. Another aspect of good software, it's changeable. So like I told you, like change is the only constant thing. So you need to like consider this when you write your platform, when you write your code, when you build like the infrastructure, make it changeable. And changeable in this case means, okay, you can replace like your pricing logic in your business logic easily, and like have a new one, have it like change the pricing logic with like some new requirements from business. On the architecture level, be able to replace like a product search which might be based on MySQL with one which is based on Elasticsearch without changing the complete front-end implementation for the search. Infrastructure-wise, make it easy to replace like things like logging, things like metrics by writing proper adapters so your application is not aware of the underlying implementation. So this is what you can do as a developer to make like this kind of changes very, very easy. Documentation. Who likes documentation? Whoa, cool. Yeah, so that's I really love the clean code part, because it makes like your code self-documenting in the best way. Nevertheless, you need to document some parts of your work, and ideally you document like either a very complex part in the code, which you can't be built more simpler, to help people understand what actually happened there. Document your building blocks, so that's like the next level, like what are the functional parts in your code which needs to work together, and where someone who's like new to your code base needs additional understanding or additional context. This is stuff you need to document, to write down. Something you need to have when you have any kind of API. Internally or externally, you should document your API, so make the consumers understand how your API works, what actions you have, what data you transmit, and so on. So very basic thing. Something which like sometimes is like forgotten is the how to set up and like the application on a new machine, for example. Imagine like a new developer join, and like he gets a fresh laptop and like a welcome and like a seat, and then like, hey, now you have to run your application, get the application running. And I saw it various times also in companies I worked in, that you get like some kind of like long list of steps which you have to follow one by one. And they were written like half a year ago, and then you go through and then you run into problems because the application changed in the meantime. This like user has a very hard time, and what you do then, hey, like you figure out how it works now, update the documentation. And like what happened, this person figures out how to get it run, but he will never update the documentation. So put an eye on this, enforce this, or make it easy, make it so simple, make it easier that the configuration steps is reduced. What you need to come to document too is like the architecture part. So make people understand how your whole platform works. Understand what are the big blocks which they need to like look at, how they're communicating with each other, and like how like things like monitoring, logging, and so on works. Tests. Who is not writing tests? Automated tests for their software. Okay, like that's number one rule for any maintainable software. You have to write tests for like your code. If you don't have like tests, you have an unmaintainable thing, and you can like either throw it away, or like the first thing you have to do if you want to do any change there, you have to like provide like additional set of tests. So they're essential. They are like your backbone. Like there's like your net which will hold you when you fall down. When you remove part of the code, like the test will tell you like what else you need to change. So very basic. Monitoring, logging, and metrics. These are three different things, and three different they are equally important. Monitoring means like you need to understand like when part of the platform not working. You as a developer needs to have the right understanding of like what happened there, and like you need to provide a monitoring which tells you what goes wrong, and which gives you the right information to act properly. Next level then is like to log what's actually happened, and like this has happened with logging. So you have to think about where to log things, how much do I want to log? Ideally log everything, but then you need to make it meaningful. And with meaningful, it needs to be enriched. Like a normal log message without like any context where this log message was generated is like useless. So annotate, tag your log messages, add additional meta information to the log messages, and put it in a similar structure so that like tools like Elasticsearch or like Logly or Splunk, whatever you use for analyzing your log messages, that they have a chance to index this kind of information. Metrics, like that's like something I like, which comes always like at the end of this three like things. That's actually like the best way to see how your application actually works. Logs are for the history. Metrics tells you what currently happened in your application, and it does not tell you when something goes wrong. It tells you when something goes right. So you understand, hey, what like the system is doing, like how much load do I have, and this is like something good. You can also see like when this pattern of like a metric changed, you see, oh, something changed, and then you can know, okay, I need to dig deeper to understand if this is a positive change or a negative change. It gives you a very quick indication. Last thing, what the good software needs to have, it needs to be fully automated. So the best example is deployments. Like I worked in like several levels of this automation. So one where like the deployment process was like one-page document where you have to like go step by step in order to release things. Now I just do a merge. So like this changed a lot, and ideally like as more you automate it, easier it is for developers to do it, and as quicker and like earlier in the process they will do it, and as more frequently they will do it, because it's easy, and like with more frequency you create like smaller change sets. Smaller changes are easier to review. Smaller changes are easier to roll back. So as more automation you have there, the better it is. Cool. We defined what is good software. So based on this, who thinks he writes software in this way? It's not the same, a bit less. So maybe you take something with you. Now I want to like go to the next level, and like want to explore like what it takes to get to the next level. What makes a developer great? So like if you write software in this way, it's perfect. Like it's a good thing. Every company will be happy to have you. But there are ways how you can improve yourself, and this is like where this greatness comes from. As again, it's my personal objective. Everybody have like probably a different definition of this, but I want to share mine with you. The number one is style. So with style, I mean I do it by example. When a great developer comes to your company, he just like recently hired one, and like he is, like has the potential to become a really great one for your company. The first thing he will do, ask, hey, where can I find the way how you code? Where's your coding handbook? Where's your style guide? Where can I find like the patterns you use in your teams, and the teams I will join? where, like, do you have like things like a visual style guide for a front-end person? Like, where can I see like what are the visuals, like to understand like what are the building blocks I can use, and so on. So they will proactively ask for like the style of the company. They will not enforce like their own style into like the code base of the team they join. It's one thing. On the other side, if this is not there, like a great developer is someone who is actively looking for building such a handbook. He's someone who's like, hey, we need the style guide in order to like streamline our work with designers and like to be able to work quicker and faster and make the right decision when we build a new page. So a great developer is someone who's really looking into this, and like style is very, very important for a great developer. Just two examples. That's like our style guide. Oh, that looks perfectly on this beamer. But yeah, like it's a living style guide, like you know it probably from your own company, or you should like have something similar. If not, like try to build something similar, like together with your team of front-end and design. This actually like defines the design language. It like defines like then what we call atoms, like what are the individual components, and it goes down to like later like there's like language behind which is like built of biological. Then you have molecules, which are like then like things like a full form and like how this behaves together and so on. So it's all here. It's all with like code and design combined. So it's a full working thing. Similar thing exists for Shopify, which is like the developer handbook, which is more like the general principles behind like the way how like Shopify writes software. Like what are my toolbox for new developers, so people like find everything they need to get onboarded quicker. It's there. You see like patterns behind like the e-commerce world. So these are like just examples. Like probably you find like these examples everywhere, but like build such a handbook. It will help get your people faster onboarded, and that creates consistency in your code base. A great developer is someone who like looks for understanding. So with understanding, I mean he's not looking, that I know how this will be implemented. I know the technical side of a thing. He really looks this holistically, and he is try to gain more knowledge if things are not clear. So he is actively going to business side and asking questions to understand things completely. The product manager will like get a lot of questions from a great developer, like to make it very clear like what they need to build. And it's also like someone who's looking for the understanding on the other side. So understanding has like two sides. One is like in the direction to the developer, but also in the way back. So a great developer like looks for understanding on the business side for the needs of the developer, of the complexity, and he's able to explain this properly to the business side or like the marketing side or whoever like is the owner of this piece of software which needs to be changed. This correlates with another very important like aspect of a great developer. It's the way how they communicate. So communication is key. He needs to like be not like sitting in this dark room and like not trying to speak with others. The opposite needs to be the case. So go out there and like ask questions. Be open with your when you have like troubles or problems. In the daily stand-up, like really tell early like that you're struggling something or you underestimated the complexity and not try to solve it this day, and like next day you spend the same time in the stand-up and say, hey, like I'm not 100% there yet, but like I will do it, and like you actually know that like the complexity is much bigger than you anticipated in the beginning. Like be open with this and communicate the things early. A great developer also like seeks for feedback. So it's something like they want to know like if this what they build is good. They want to know if things are working as expected. So they're looking for this feedback, and they're also giving this feedback very openly and without you have to ask them. So that's like very, very important. Classic, but like true. They're constant learners. So they want to stay ahead of like their craft. They want to know like what's going on, but they also know like their weaknesses. And they not only learn like the next thing and like what they're already good in. They want to like understand, oh yeah, maybe my communication part is not the best one. Like I'm actively looking for trainings. I like talk with my lead. Like, can I do like a public speaking training? Can I can I improve my soft skills, for example? Because my technical skills are great, but like I know that there are my weaknesses. So people try to get around these, and this makes people great. Not only improving the technical side. Or if you're good in like the other part and like technical side is the problem, then of course like try to get better there. Another thing like which fits into this like kind of communication, a great developer is someone who's like understands what's going on in the company, so he wants to understand the business side of the company. He asks like what kind of KPIs do we have, what do they mean, so like a great developer asks a lot of questions inside the company to gain more context. And the most important aspect of a great developer, that's the mentorship. So that's actually like then, for me, this is the most important aspect because like that makes the biggest difference and the biggest like evolutionary step when like people start to sharing their knowledge with others. So they're actively looking into mentor other people of the team. They're helping them to pull requests. They're giving like a very good like feedback there, like showing out like things where they can go deeper. But they're also helping like new people joining to gain context of the platform quicker, like understanding, like explaining where to find things. But like they're also good in sharing like their like specific knowledge which they have. It's not that they like want to keep it for themselves and say, hey, this is like the area I know. They're actively sharing this with the rest of the team. So if they are not there for some reasons, like other people can do it in the same way. Like empowers other people to work in your field and to come to the same technical level as you have. So that's like these major aspects of great developers. So it's style, it's understanding, it's communication, it's learning, and being a mentor or like being someone who's sharing knowledge. That's like these core principles behind like a great developer, and it's all like comes in the context of your team. So like a great developer, which is good, like which is a great one for this one team, this one company, does not automatically have to be a great one in another team. It's always like depends on the people who are left and right, and are they willing to accept this or to adopt him. That's it. Another like last question, like who really thinks that he is like such a great developer? Who might think that he will become very closely of becoming one? Cool. So please come to our booth, like we have to talk. Okay, and that's actually it. Thanks a lot for your time.